Welcome to the Corporate Treasury 101 podcast. This is the third and final part of our full interview with Danilo Gonzalez, where we discuss about Siemens Energy Solutions and trade finance. In the episode of today, expect to learn what Siemens Energy does and the role they play in the changing renewable energy sector, how the companies like Siemens Energy navigate and mitigate trade finance obstacles, whether they are technological or innovative solutions that the energy sector has adopted to streamline trade finance processes, and some success stories or lessons from Siemens Energy Solutions with much more, like always. Another interview that happened in person, and you can find it in full on YouTube, where you can watch Hussam and I interview Danilo, who has been fantastic to us, especially for a first industry-focused interview. We hope you will enjoy the episode. If that is the case, and when you're thinking about how you found our podcast, chances are that it was through word of mouth, social media, or a recommendation from your favorite podcast platform. And this is our only request to you. The best way you can support the podcast is to head to YouTube and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Corporate Treasury 101. That will mean the world to us and help more people learn about treasury. On another note, this episode is brought to you by Automation Boutique. Automation Boutique is empowering treasury, finance, and risk management with tailored automation solutions. They use robotic process automation, RPA, AI, APIs, and Power Query to create automations that can work with your existing systems. We partnered with Automation Boutique as we really like their approach to innovation and how they help the industry. For this partnership, they came up with an AI-powered automation self-scan that can help you find out if a business process is suitable for automation and how to best get started. It is totally free, non-intrusive, and only takes about 15 minutes. What's great is that the report you will get from the scan helps you determine if the benefits of the automation outweigh the costs. If you want to have a look, head to the link in the description or to automationboutique.com/corporate treasury 101. And with all that being said, please welcome Danilo Gonzalez.
Interesting. What, in your experience, has been the biggest challenge in trade finance? In the energy sector specifically or in general? What's the hardest part? You've been on both sides. So you've worked in the bank. You've also been on the supplier side. You probably have suppliers of your own as well who you execute trade finance with, right? What's the hardest part?
I think the hardest is still the communication and all the manual work that is behind these kind of documents. So many people are involved. So let's think about in general. So you have the commercial guy, you have treasury, you have the bank, and also you have the customer. Okay, so all these parties need to agree on something, which is kind of difficult sometimes because the customer wants something. My policy says I need to do this. My commercial person wants something as well. And we have to meet. We have to get an agreement that please everyone at the same time. So there is a lot of back and forth with banks, with the customer, with the commercial colleagues, and and nowadays it's also important the KYC, or they call it the KYT, know your transaction.
Or even
Okay? Yeah.
okay.
So they can scrutinize the client, the project itself. They can check if you are ESG compliant. Yeah? So everything it can be requested. Extra documentation, the contract itself, because you cannot request, for example, a warranty without an underlying transaction. So banks could ask, okay, so you are doing this for which purpose, right? It's important.
Yeah, and actually thinking about it, the financial institution or the bank that guarantees the whole trade, they might not know anything about the other party involved in the case of Siemens Energy, your potential clients. So they're like, okay, if your client don't pay you, we will pay you instead. But they don't know the client, so how does it go? Like, do they run a whole credit analysis?
They do.
Okay.
They do also on the client.
Okay.
You can have instruments in which you say, I'm going to transfer this warranty to my another entity.
Mm-hmm.
Banks would say, if I don't know who is going to be the final beneficiary, I don't agree on this.
Okay.
Because I don't know to whom we are going to deal with. If it's in the blacklist or
Right.
in a sanctioned country, they will reject this. So normally it has to be clear, all the scope. Who is my party? Who are the parties involved? Who are the beneficiaries? Mm-hmm. If it's more than one, everything needs to be clear. And this is why everybody needs to be prepared for the back and forth in terms of documentation.
So how much, I mean, I guess it will depend on the trade, the company, the project, but how much time does it take from okay guys, we're gonna do this project until the guarantee is signed and therefore the project can move forward until it was stopped so far? Like what are we talking about in terms of time frame?
With a good bank, 2 days, 3 days.
Okay.
And
challenging the banks here.
If
Love
you
that.
go into a more difficult region, it could take 1-2 months.
Okay. And so that's 1-2 months during which the project doesn't move forward at all, because either the client or the supplier is saying, guys, I'm not moving
You can be
forward.
even disqualified because you didn't present the warranty.
Right.
I mean, everything can happen. But the importance is the communication, the anticipation. That's why if you know that you are going to need something in 1 month, in 3 months, you can anticipate the wording. For instance, you can pre-align the wordings with the banks.
Mm-hmm.
Then requires expertise. With time, you will know what the banks accept
Mm-hmm.
and what is a no-go according to your policies as well. And also if you have a good contact in the banks that is very independent,
Mm-hmm.
because some banks, for example, will not move a finger without a legal approval. Some others, experts in banking, say, I check this, I like this, move forward. So the moment that you involve more people in the process, the longer it's going to take.
Interesting. So you mentioned a few of them, Danilo. The Ukraine situation. I think when you were talking about the Italian project, there was also this tax aspect that needed to be handled. What are overall the geopolitical and regulatory challenges that come together with the energy sector and when it comes to trade finance?
Well, the regulators are different in every country. This is what we see
Right.
all the time. So that's why you have to be prepared and try to understand the country aspect situation, the country regulators, the country aspects. So as mentioned, if in Pakistan it's compulsory for an LC, then you don't discuss why. You just do it, right? Because you know it is like this.
It's easy then.
Yeah, and then and then in other countries they have special products, and they say like either that or that or that. And for me, it would be great if we have standards like European standards. This is a template. Everybody can agree on this. It's fair for both parties. Let's do this. Schemes. It's called schemes. So in some countries they have a scheme 1 or 2. Everybody can use this scheme provided by the regulators. Okay, so.
But so what does that mean? Does that mean that's okay in that country, the template that you're talking about, because if we can, we will advocate for it, if we get there someday. But what does it mean? So like, okay, the standard for this industry and this type of trade is this type of tenor with this percentage of the project being put in guarantee with this type of amount, or what do you mean?
Yes, the template is basically the wording without the amount or the tenor.
Okay.
Right. So it's just where you define the concepts and you define when this guarantee, for example, is going to be executed based on what, and everybody agrees that it's fair for both parties. It's not more for me. It's not more for them. It's equally is fair. Is even. So then you say, okay, let's put the amount here. Let's say between whom we are going to sign this contract, and we don't change anything else. And then the banks recognize the scheme and say, okay, this is the scheme that we also know in the country. And if we have more schemes in different countries, then you can go to these standards rather than my standard, which is different from the client standard, which is different from the bank standard.
That's in the legal wording. That's the hard part?
It
It's legal wording. Okay. And then who, in the event of this, then this happens, and this person
You can be very creative. They are very creative. I mean, it could be a joke, but if you ask a lawyer for an opinion, if they don't provide any opinion, then he's a bad lawyer.
100%. And so why is there no template yet in Europe, for instance, where you can think, okay, operations are globally standardized, more or less the same ISO regulations, like the same restriction? Why is there not a template yet?
I think because the regulators haven't agreed in something. It's like if you say SEPA, okay, let's agree on the SEPA standards. Fine. So why don't we go ahead and we agree on standard wording templates, European Union wise, for example, in which all the regulators come together and decide something. Also, compliance has a say on this as well. So regulators, compliance, legal, all together should agree on something. But then of course, probably country by country, they will say, no, I don't like this, or compulsory requirement, we need to include this and that. And then this is where the complexity starts. Because you need to, if you want to agree on something, and then you start putting exceptions here and there is no standard anymore.
Right. And so speaking of that, how close and how often do you talk with your legal department when it comes to trade finance?
Little.
Okay.
Little.
So you set up some templates and then it's done. Or
you receive a client template, you check, you know your policies, what is a go and what is a no-go.
Okay.
And then you have to, with some expertise, you can make your own decisions.
Interesting.
And then you say, okay, this is a warning or this is a no-go. Then you need to come back and say, no, this is impossible. Or if you say, okay, this is a risk that I can bear, then you go ahead, but you need to assess this with the business unit, saying, we are going to accept this, but bear in mind that there is an underlying risk in this part. And we have to be careful. And but it goes smoothly because otherwise it's going to take longer. Legal is busy. Legal is a busy area. They have a lot to do all the time. So it's you send a request today, maybe it's going to take days until they come back to you.
Might delay a bit the process.
Yeah.
Does ESG aspects bring an additional difficulty to this whole energy sector when it comes to trade finance? Because like the energy sector in particular is evolving a lot because of all the ESG aspect, which is becoming more and more pivotal, critical and important for the company. So how does that impact trade finance activities, if any?
I think it's going to depend on how your company is positioned. No? Now we have this ESG agency ratings, no?
Right.
Sustainalytics. There are Morgan Stanley Corporate International, for instance, this carbon disclosure project as well. So those are agency ratings for ESG specifically. If you are with them, working with them and assessed by them, I think you have better cards to overcome the challenges from the banks, right? So you say, I have green infrastructures, I have green products, I am very green, and then probably it goes faster. And then if you are in a risky business, then maybe everything gets a little bit locked sometimes. It depends, I think. It depends on in which business you are.
Does the energy prices affect anything? Like, do you get, if the overall energy sector is heading towards, like for today, like cost of barrel of petrol is quite high, energy prices are going up globally, do banks then look at you as an energy provider and go, hey, look, I'm not sure if there's going to be a demand for, there's always a demand for energy, I guess, so that doesn't go away. Does that affect at all your relationship with the banks and how you get treated?
Yeah, I mean, there is a huge demand of energy at the moment, right? So basically, it's going to be harder and harder to achieve in terms of lines, for instance, with a huge demand, considering that, let's put it like if you have a 100 billion backlog and 10% you need to cover, it's a lot of lines that you need to. So you either talk to more banks, or you go to local banks, or you try to use some other types of instruments. So it's gonna depend on what is gonna be your strategy to cover this demand. Or maybe you say, okay, let's reduce the offers on warranties, for example. So it's like you don't offer warranties just because of the fun of it. Or maybe you say, I don't need the advance payments, and then I will skip the advance payment warranty, because at the end is to cash in first. But if you don't have liquidity issues, you pay me on time. I don't give you any warranty for this, and then I can focus on performance, on bid bonds, something that is more relevant for the project itself, rather than covering a payment or covering an advance payment. So you have to pick up your battles. You have to pick your battles. What makes sense in to achieve your goals, no, in your portfolio. But this is something that is coming, definitely.
Super cool. And what's Siemens' role in that overall? So Siemens as a company, or Siemens Energy as a company, sorry. How is Siemens Energy positioning itself in the global energy division and economy overall?
We are supplying like 16% of the global energy worldwide. So it's huge, and we have presence in more than 90 countries. So it's 92,000.
Which types of energy? Which industries?
It's we have the gas service, which is the gas service is focused on the large turbines and the steam turbines. Okay. Then we have the grid technologies, which is focused on the storage and transportation of energy. And then we have also the wind power, yeah, of course, and the grid technologies as well. So there are 4 main areas, but everything is focused on sustainability, affordability, and to have reliable energy. So basically, it's reduction of emissions. It's to provide green, to reduce the greenhouse gases, no? And also reduce the energy consumption. So basically, the more efficient you are, the less consumption you will have in your products. So this is the key focus. And of course, you need to invest in innovation, keep investing in innovation, but we are there. We have the means, and now it's up to also the policymakers to say, okay, let's go to the next step, to the next level. And the challenge is also that not every country is at the same level. No? So maybe Sweden, Norway, they say, well, we are very green, but in other markets, they are not that developed. So the demand of your products is less or different. So you need to adapt according to the development of the country. What the country is requesting now. It's solution A or solution B, or is the advance of A or B. This is the biggest challenge, I guess, because we are a global company, so you have customers at different levels according to the countries.
And so among the different challenges that you mentioned in trade finance, but also in the energy sector overall, how does the Siemens Energy Treasury team navigate those? I'm thinking, for instance, about the fact that you said each country has its own regulations, expectations when it comes to trade and trade finance. How do you navigate all this? Wrapped into how do you navigate such a hectic and, quite some topical industry that is the energy one?
Yeah, I think in our company, what we try to do is to have the proper expertise in every in every country where we have a presence. So we have teams that are dedicated to specific markets and specific countries. So like this, you have the knowledge, enough knowledge to solve your problems, but also it's important to build good relationships with your banks, with your partners, in which you know exactly how the game works.
Mm-hmm.
You need to play a good game, and you need to have key persons on the banks that will solve your problems. You will have your key customers as well, and all the key players in the equation need to talk to each other. But also, it's important to have policies inside your company. So like this, you know exactly what you're allowed to do, what you should not be doing to mitigate the risk. And if you don't have this, it could be tricky to make good decisions, right? So if you have internal rules, you say, okay, I know until how far I can go. And you have the expertise, you have your banks, you have your clients, everybody talking to each other and running as smoothly as possible, but it's never that smooth, but never. It's but it depends on the market as well.
Yeah. How do you develop, nurture, and maintain that expertise? Is it bringing in-house very trade finance experts? Is it growing them in-house because of the very specific challenges Siemens Energy has? Is it drawing and tapping into the expertise of banks, because obviously they see and have lots of trade finance, right? So how do you make sure that you always stay up to date with all this and always have the best expertise to tackle the challenges each country and project comes with?
Yeah, one is exactly to keep close contact with the banks, because they know the regulators, they know what is going on in the market.
Have to.
So it's important that they give you feedback all the time, and you ask for this feedback as well. So keep close to the banks because they know a lot. Use them, use their knowledge. Also, of course, you need to have a set of professionals, trade finance professionals, but not only, because trade finance is also very well connected to cash management. In this sense, you can have a treasurer covering not only trade finance aspect, but also as well the cash management component. You know, as in the example that I explained, there was a combination between trade finance and cash management.
Right.
It could be even an FX component, because if you are having a warranty request in a foreign currency, if you are the FX manager, you can also raise your hand and say, okay, I have a FX topic here as well in this future project. So all these three pillars work closely. So of course, it depends on the companies. You can have a competence for trade finance and FX and cash management, but at local level or at regional level, it could also make sense to have experts that cover all these three products, and it's going to be even more attractive.
Yeah. And so linking expertise with technology, how has the technology in trade finance evolved? And do you see any trends or any latest innovations in trade finance that's, okay, that's particularly useful for our industry if there are specific tools for the energy sector, or like in trade finance in general? How do you navigate this, and which tools do you choose to work with when it comes to trade finance?
Yeah, and when you achieve a certain size of the company, then it always makes sense to try to find an internal solution, because this is the way how you cover ground. So if I go in a service provider that is going to cover one part of the region or one region, is probably not going to be sufficient. And this is when the big companies say, I'm going to build something that will solve all my problems internally, and then I will probably look a service provider to, for example, to connect me with the banks. And but like this, you can have a better internal transparency, internal control. You can have workflows in terms of approvals, who does what, who is responsible for what, audit track, and then you can, what we see, we see a lot of now tools that connect with different banks, but then again, it's challenging to find out if this service provider is covering all my banks, because if you want to buy a product and they say like, yeah, I cover 30% of your market, then I will need 3-4 partners for the same. And I don't know if it's efficient to be connected in 3-4 different platforms. Then the banks will have another platform offering the same. But if I have my own thing, my own database connected, I think it's the dream. You keep the knowledge, you keep the track on the things, the workflows, and you are connected to the banks. This is probably the future.
Interesting. But so I suspect if it was a contract with Siemens Energy, a third-party provider would say, okay, right now we are connected with only 30% of the banks that you're talking about, but we can make an effort to connect with those other banks as fast as possible. Or would it be too much of an effort on the system vendor side as well to say, okay, look, we cannot cover that scope?
It is a big effort. And also because even for simple stuff, banks might not have the infrastructure.
Okay.
Small banks will say, I don't have the capacity to implement what you are asking.
And so then focusing on your solution, because I think that will interest lots of treasurers. How do you unlock the resources to build an in-house solution, especially when it comes to trade finance? Because, I mean, we know it. And one of the main feedback we get is that treasury function is not always super well funded because it's still a support function. And even though it gets more and more strategic, it's like hiring talent is sometimes difficult, but like let alone unlocking budgets to implement third-party systems. But like when it comes to developing your own solution in-house, how do you come around with that? Because that's quite a significant effort as well on the corporate side.
Yeah, it takes years, honestly. So you start with something and then you develop. Little by little, you start developing according to your needs. Because you will discover by the years that you need this, you need that, and the trends also, the technological trends will navigate you to different solutions. And but the thing is, if you have experts, you have two ways. You outsource your IT part, in which you say, okay, my treasury IT is going to be outsourced to the general IT department, or I keep it in-house in treasury. So you have the treasury IT department. For me, either way could work, but it's having a treasury IT could be probably more attractive for people. In the way that I have been doing treasury for 10 years, I need to see something else. Okay, so do you like technology? Do you like treasury operations? Why don't you go into this department? And
Super cool.
And you will have better insights than a normal IT guy, right? So you could add value.
That's an amazing career advice here.
Yeah,
like, definitely. And developing new skills, having the company help you developing those skills, and then bringing tremendous amount of value to a treasury department.
In different projects, this will make the difference, because if you don't know what you are building, it's going to be very difficult for the end user. The end user will come back and say, this is missing, this is not working, and then you try to connect the dots. But if you never did it, the end-to-end process, and you don't know why this end user is requesting this, it's going to be harder. Right?
Super cool. That's good career advice overall.
Sense.
Danilo, thank you so much for coming on the show. Is there anything that we haven't covered about trade finance that you'd like people to know about?
For me, trade finance it's a really important area of treasury, because it helps the liquidity on the companies. And at the end, treasury is the guardian of the balance sheet. So it's very important, and it's better that we as treasurers try to find solutions rather than service providers finding the solution for us. We have to be proactive in this regard, I guess.
Super cool. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Danilo.
Thank you very much.